The ocean stretched endlessly, a restless mirror of the sky above, its depths concealing the forgotten bones of an empire lost to both time and memory. Beneath those cold waves, the ruins of Atlantis slumbered, carved from coral and gold, its spires entangled in shadows and silence. The people who once ruled these seas had vanished centuries ago, leaving behind whispers that drifted through the currents like ghosts. But something was stirring once again, a tremor, faint yet insistent, as if the deep itself remembered its wounds and sought to reopen them. On the deck of the ship Celine's Wake, Captain Lira Voss stood with her eyes fixed on the horizon. Her crew moved quietly around her, sensing the tension that always accompanied her before a dive. The expedition had taken months to prepare, each step burdened by superstition. The charts they carried were copied from fragments of older maps, salvaged from forgotten archives, smuggled from collectors who claimed to have traced the legend of the sunken empire. Lira had heard the tales as a child, the stories of an empire drowned in its own ambition, of gods who turned away from mortals who tried to steal their fire. She never believed them until she found the first relic. It had been buried in the silt of a shallow trench, a shard of obsidian etched with symbols that pulsed faintly when touched by moonlight. She remembered the hum it gave off, like a heartbeat under the surface. Since then, she'd been haunted by dreams of visions of marble halls filled with water, voices calling her by name, and a crown that glowed with a light not meant for mortal eyes. She didn't tell her crew everything. Some truths were too heavy to share. Depth markers set, called Terran, her first mate, breaking her reverie. The wind carried the salt of the sea, sharp and cold. Visibilities poor below 50 meters. Storm front moving east. We've got a narrow window. Lira nodded. Then we move now. Prep the submersibles. As the divers suited up, the hum of engines echoed across the deck. The Celine's Wake was an old vessel, its hull reinforced for deep sea pressure, its instruments modified with tech Lira had acquired through less than legal means. The lights along its sides flickered like stars reflected on water. Lira descended into her craft, a sleek, silver pod marked with the symbol of a crescent moon, and sealed the hatch. The interior lights dimmed, and she exhaled slowly, watching bubbles rise as the craft sank below the waves. Darkness consumed everything. The world above vanished within seconds, leaving only the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures drifting like embers in the black. Lira's breath came steady through the intercom. "Maintain formation," she said, her voice echoing in the calm channel. "Keep an eye on the depth gauge." At 200 meters, they saw a shape emerging from the abyss, vast and impossible. Pillars of coral and marble twisted together, forming arches that reached toward the surface like the fingers of a drowned god. The ruins of Atlantis were real. Columns lay shadowed across the seabed, encrusted with barnacles and seaweed. Statues stared blankly from the shadows, their faces eroded by centuries of current. Between them, something glowed faintly, a pulse of blue light emanating from deep within the temple complex. "Reading energy signatures," murmured Terran. "That can't be natural." "Nothing about this place is natural," Lira replied. They maneuvered closer, the submersibles weaving between fallen walls and broken bridges. Lira's eyes widened as she recognized the same markings carved into the relic she had found at the same obsidian ruins, glowing faintly along the temple entrance. "This is it," she whispered. The heart of Atlantis. The structure ahead resembled an inverted pyramid, its base buried in the sand, its beak opening like the mouth of a great beast. As they entered, the temperature dropped. Their instruments flickered, readings spiking with erratic energy. The walls shimmered faintly, alive with patterns that seemed to shift when not directly observed. "Terran, keep recording," she said. "If we lose transmission, surface immediately." "Understood." The inside of the temple was a labyrinth. Water drifted through vast corridors lined with mosaics depicting a civilization both magnificent and cruel, processions of kings crowned in coral, warriors riding serpents of the deep, priests offering light to a figure cloaked in shadow. The same figure appeared again and again, a towering presence with eyes of flame and hands raised as if to command the tides themselves. Beneath it, an inscription in an ancient tongue. Lira's translator struggled to interpret it but managed a fragment. "The sea remembers what man forgets." A sudden rumble vibrated through the structure. The sand stirred, and from the darkness emerged shapes as figures, translucent and slow-moving, like the silhouettes of the drowned. Their faces were featureless, their eyes hollow. Lyra's heart pounded. "What are those?" whispered Terran. "Echoes," she said softly. "The Empire's ghosts." The phantoms drifted closer, drawn by the light of their submersibles. Their forms rippled like smoke underwater. One reached toward Lyra's craft, its hand brushing against the glass. The contact sent a pulse through the hull, and for an instant, she saw a vision of streets of marble illuminated by golden light, people bowing before a massive throne. A voice echoed in her mind, "Return the crown." She gasped, clutching her head. "Lira, talk to me." Terran's voice crackled through the comms. "I'm fine," she lied. But the vision lingered, heavy and vivid. Somewhere deeper within the ruins, she could feel a cling of the artifact that had haunted her dreams. The crown of Aquilus, the source of the Empire's fall. They pressed on, the path wound downward through broken arches and flooded chambers. Strange lights flickered in the distance, forming patterns like constellations. The deeper they went, the stronger the pressure grew, not just from the sea but from something unseen. Lyra's instruments began to malfunction, compasses spinning wildly. Static filled the comms. "Terran, status?" she called, but there was no response. Her radar showed only faint blips and then nothing. She was alone. Her submersible drifted into a vast chamber at the heart of the ruins. It was circular, its walls lined with towering statues depicting the same shadow deity. In the center stood an altar of obsidian, upon which rested the crown of black as midnight, its edges shimmering with an inner fire. It floated slightly above the surface, defying gravity, humming with an ancient resonance that vibrated through her bones. Lyra's breath caught. "You're real," she whispered. She extended the submersible's mechanical arm, inching toward the relic. As the claw neared it, the water around the crown shimmered like heat over desert sand. The readings spiked, alarms blaring, energy surge. She shouted, but there was no one to hear. The crown pulsed on Sia and then everything went white. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer inside the submersible. She was standing in a great hall, dry and illuminated by golden light. Her suit was gone, replaced by flowing garments of silver thread. Before her stretched the throne room of Aquilus, restored to its glory. Hundreds of figures lined the hall, all turning toward her. At the far end, upon a throne of coral and pearl, sat a man crowned in black fire. His eyes burned with the same blue light as the crown. "Welcome home," he said. His voice was calm, ancient, and filled with something both regal and cruel. "You carry the blood of Aquilus. You have returned to claim what was lost." Lyra shook her head. "This isn't real." He smiled faintly. "Reality is but the surface of the sea. Beneath it lies truth." He rose, his form towering above her. "Our empire fell because we reached for the sun. We sought to command the tides, to challenge the gods themselves. They punished us with the abyss. But now, through you, we may rise again." "I won't let you," she said, stepping back. "You destroyed yourselves once. I won't let it happen again." "You misunderstand." His eyes flared. "You are me. You are the air, the vessel. The crown calls not to your mind but to your blood." The air shimmered, and she felt it up the same hum that had haunted her since she found the relic. The crown appeared before her, suspended in light. "Take it," the king said. "Fulfill your destiny." She hesitated, torn between awe and terror. The crown pulsed, its rhythm matching her heartbeat. She reached out, and as her fingers brushed it, pain lanced through her skull. Images flooded her mind, oceans boiling, cities collapsing, screams drowned in the roar of the tide. The crown burned with power, and she felt herself being pulled apart, her thoughts merging with something vast and inhuman. "No!" she screamed, hurling the crown away. It struck the ground with a flash of blue fire. The vision shattered, and she was once again in her submersible, alarms blaring, the chamber collapsing around her. Cracks spread through the walls as debris rained from above. The crown, now glowing furiously, began to sink into the floor, consumed by molten light. Lyra grasped the controls, forcing the submersible upward. The tunnel shook violently, currents tearing through the ruins. Through the viewport, she saw statues crumbling, ghosts scattering into the dark. A voice whispered through the water, "You cannot escape what you are." She pushed the engines to full power. The submersible roared upward, barely avoiding falling debris. The temple imploded behind her, sending a shockwave through the sea. For a moment, everything went black again. When she awoke, she was drifting near the surface. The ocean was calm, eerily so. The Selene's wake floated nearby, battered but intact. Terran's voice came faintly through the radio. "Lira, are you there?" "I'm here," she breathed. "The temple's gone." It all collapsed. They hauled her aboard, helping her to her feet. The crew looked shaken but relieved. "We lost contact with you for nearly an hour," Terran said. "We thought he stopped when he saw her expression." "What happened down there?" She hesitated. In her hand, she still held something cold and smooth. She looked down and saw a fragment of the crown, no larger than a coin, its surface flickering faintly with blue light. She closed her fist around it before anyone else could see. "Nothing," she said quietly, "just ruins." That night, as the ship sailed toward the mainland, the sea was unnaturally still. Lira stood alone on the deck, staring into the dark water. The moon's reflection trembled across the surface. In its rippling glow, she saw a fascia her own, but not quite. The eyes glowed faintly blue. A whisper drifted through the air, barely audible. "The sea remembers." She turned away, clutching the fragment in her pocket. But in her dreams, she saw Aquilus once more rebuilt, shining beneath the waves. She walked its streets as empress, the crown whole again upon her brow. The people bowed, chanting her name. Above her, the shadow of the drowned king watched in silence. Days passed. News spread of strange tides along the coast, as ships vanishing without a trace, fishermen hearing songs from below, lights moving beneath the surface at night. Lira knew what it meant. The empire was stirring again. The crown's power had not been destroyed, only scattered, waiting to be reclaimed. Terran found her one evening, staring out at the sea. "You've been quiet since we left," he said. "You saw something down there, didn't you?" She didn't answer immediately. "Do you believe in destiny, Terran?" He frowned. "I believe in choices. Destiny's just a story people tell when they're afraid of their own power." She smiled faintly. "Maybe you're right." But as he walked away, she opened her hand. The fragment pulsed faintly, responding to her heartbeat. The glow spread through her skin like veins of light. She could feel the ocean calling, a low and endless song that promised both glory and ruin. And somewhere deep below, the shadow of the king whispered. Soon, weeks turned into months. Lira returned to the sea again and again, drawn by an obsession she couldn't explain. Each dive brought new discovery: artifacts, inscriptions, fragments of the old empire. Each one resonated with the same energy, connecting to the shard she carried. With every piece she gathered, the dreams grew stronger. She began to remember things she shouldn't: her rituals, languages, memories of a life long extinguished. Her reflection in the mirror sometimes changed, eyes glowing faintly like those of the statues she had seen. Her crew grew uneasy. Some laughed quietly in the night. Others whispered of curses and omens. Only Terran remained, loyal despite his fear. One evening, as they prepared for another dive, he confronted her. "This isn't exploration anymore, Lira. It's obsession. Whatever's down there, it's changing you." She met his gaze, her voice calm but distant. "It's not changing me, it's awakening me." He stepped closer. "Then maybe it's time to stop before there's nothing left to wake." She turned away. "It's already too late for that." The final expedition began beneath the blood-red dawn. The ocean was calm, as if waiting. Lira descended alone this time, following the pull of the crown deep into the trench where Aquilus once stood. At the bottom, she found a rift in the sea floor, a wound glowing with the same blue light. As she approached, the water shimmered, and the fragment in her hand lifted on its own, merging with the light. The voice of the king filled her mind once more. At last, the air returns. The rift opened, revealing the silhouette of the drowned city restored, radiant, waiting. The crown hovered before her, whole again. She hesitated for the briefest of moments before taking it in her hands. The moment it touched her brow, the sea erupted in light. Currents spiraled outward, storms rising across the surface. The voice within her became her own. On the Selene's wake, Terran watched in horror as the ocean began to boil. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the shadow of something vast beneath the wave as an entire city rising once more, towers breaking the surface like the bones of the world. And at its center, standing upon a spire of obsidian, was Lira, her eyes blazing blue, her hair flowing like waves, her voice echoing across the storm. "The empire shall rise again." The sea obeyed her command. The water surged, swallowing the horizon. The storm raged for 3 days and nights, and when it finally passed, the map of the world had changed. Islands had vanished, new coasts had formed, and in the middle of the endless ocean stood a city of dark stone and golden light, crowned by eternal storm clouds. No one who entered it ever returned. Sailors spoke of hearing voices in the wind, of seeing figures standing on the spires, watching. They called it the Sunken Empire reborn. And somewhere within its halls, a queen sat upon her throne, a crown of shadows upon her head, waiting for the day the world above would remember what it had tried to forget. For the sea always remembers, and the sea always takes back what is owed.